Michael Gomez, and I'm a real estate broker and an investor here in Nashville, Tennessee.
And I'm Seth Mosley, Grammy Award-winning songwriter and real estate investor.
We host a monthly meetup in Middle Tennessee for anyone who wants to build passive income, not only for retirement, but for today.
On the first Wednesday of every month, we bring in an expert from every area of investing to help you with things like finding deals, getting your financing locked in, asset protection, every kind of investing, so much more.
Our videos are all about delivering that content to you.
Go to musicandmoneyig.com for more info on our free monthly events. Hit subscribe on the page so you don't miss any awesome content, and hit that like button if you like it.
Don't let all the flair of my jacket distract you.
Here's the content.
Please allow me. It is my privilege and absolute pleasure this morning to have my really good friend Seth Mosley be the speaker. So please put it together for Mr. Seth Mosley.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm super thrilled to be speaking to you guys this morning. Me and Michael normally don't really get to speak a whole lot at a group, so we thought we'd start 2019 off by you guys hearing from us. Last month we had an awesome session. Were any of you guys here for short-term rental investing with Michael last month? Man, it was so awesome. I learned an absolute ton, and I hope that I'm going to be able to deliver you guys a lot of value, a lot of awesome content that you can take and put into action today. We've talked a lot in our group kind of about, high-level ideas. You get an amazing idea, probably 10 ideas every time you come in here. But today is about application. It's about how do you take those ideas and actually set real goals and achieve those goals. So again, I shared a little bit of my story with you. Here's a quick picture of my family. I'm married to a beautiful wife, Celie. I've got 2 daughters, Matilda and Melina. And full-time, I am a songwriter and music producer. So I love what I do. I never got into real estate because I was passionate about real estate or making money or anything. I got into it because of the freedom and the cash flow that it provides. And I met my wife in Sweden. Actually, that was one of the great things that music has taken me around the world. I used to play in a band, and her family had a music festival in Sweden, and they had me over to play. And I was not in the market for like a Swedish bride or anything like that. But as soon as we met, it was just like an instant thing, and I knew she was the woman that I was going to marry. And then we got married exactly a year later, and here we are. We've got 2 kids. We're doing what we love. We're really, for all intents and purposes, kind of living our dreams. So, and we love being able to do this now, where we're teaching things that we're learning, not only successes but failures. Believe me, we've made a lot of failures along the way, not only in real estate but just in things in general. So I hope that some of today can reflect on that, and you guys can take it and learn from it. But this group for us is really just a way to kind of give back, and in doing so, we get a lot back ourselves. We learn just an absolute ton, and I can't tell you the incredible network of people and friends that I've been able to make, and I think Michael would say the same thing through this group, and I hope that's the same for you guys. I don't know if any of you guys who are, well, just show of hands. How many of you own your own business? Okay, that's most. So how many people work like a job for another business or a company? Okay, that's cool. That's totally cool. So most people own their own business. How many of you guys feel like usually around the end of the year or beginning of the new year, you set all these big goals, and then by halfway through the year, you just kind of forget about it. The goals just disintegrate, or you don't meet them, so you change the goals or whatever. Does anybody have that experience every year with your business, with your life? It could be in personal weight loss. I know for a lot of us, we set these resolutions and forget about them 2 weeks later. And so I've had that struggle where Jim Collins in the book Good to Great talks about it as the undisciplined pursuit of more. All of us in this room are probably high achievers. We're striving for something great. We're striving to build something great, to build wealth for our families. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here in this room right now on a Wednesday morning. We're all having a desire for those things. So the struggle is always not going to be less ideas. It's the struggle of having too many good ideas and knowing how how in the world are we supposed to actually execute on those? So that's been honestly my big struggle over the last 3 to 4 years. I started as a solopreneur, and really what that means is I was just producing records and writing songs, and eventually built a company out of that that's called Full Circle Music. And I would consider real estate investing just kind of me and my wife. It's what we do. We're involved in some syndications, but it's largely the two of us doing it together. So we built these companies, and I've found myself over the past few years just getting frustrated that I have all these ideas in my mind. I'll get a new business book and get inspired about a new system. How many of y'all have like read a business book and said, this is going to change my life, and then you just don't do anything with it like 6 months later? I've like almost every book that I've ever read. And I've read some great books. I've read High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. I've read The One Thing by Jay Papasan. And I've read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad really was the one that kind of started all of it. And of the ones that I read that I knew I was going to do something with, it just never turned into anything. So when my friend Brandon Turner, who I'm in a weekly mastermind group with, told me about this new book he read, this was the face that I made. And he said, this is going to be life-changing, but this is pretty much what I did when he showed me that. I was like, okay, I don't need another business book. But Brandon, in all his wisdom and knowledge, some of you guys know him from Bigger Pockets and have heard him speak here. When he tells me to get a book, I usually take the recommendation because he's an avid learner. He's always learning. He's always looking for the next thing to improve his life, to improve his business. And so he recommended me get this book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And so I got it. I ordered it. And skeptically, I went into it. But after reading it, I found for me that it was the first framework that I truly found that was heavy on application, on the how side, and shows you a clear path forward. So we're actually in the process of implementing these practices with our company. And these practices have been written by the Franklin Covey Association. I can't take credit for any of what I'm teaching today. It's a brilliant system that I just got a lot of value out of for me, and I hope it can give you guys a lot of value as well, too, for wherever you're at in your business. And so it's really, really been a game changer. Again, I love that at Music and Money, we have a lot of great ideas. We have a lot of great speakers come in every month. But today I really wanted to drill down and give you some tips for actually picking an idea and running with it to completion. So are you guys ready to dive in today? Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, we're going to get through a lot of content. So I would love, does anybody not have a notebook or something to take notes with? If not, we can hook you up. We've got some down here on the front. But this is going to be very interactive. I'm going to be having you guys do some exercises as we go throughout. So if you're missing a notepad or something, just flag somebody down here, and we'll hook you up. Logan will hook you up. But this will be very interactive today. If you have any questions at all about anything as we're going through it, feel free to stop me. Throw up your hand. Jericho will toss that catch box at you like Tom Brady. And, well, I don't know. I actually didn't even know who won the Super Bowl until yesterday morning or something like that. That's a shame. Anyway, we're going to dive in today, and we're going to talk about what is the big challenge of leadership. Well, leaders influence in 2 areas. Number 1, they influence in strategy and in execution. Strategy being what, and execution being the how. The execution part is by far the hardest. If you ask any leader, they'll tell you 9 times out of 10, the strategy part's the easy part. It's actually executing on the strategy that's the hard part. And here's the thing that I want to say today. We're going to talk a lot about teams today, but this totally applies to you if you're a one-person team. It applies to you if it's just you and a significant other. It applies to you if it's literally just you. The key, as you'll note as we are starting to go through this, is having some form of accountability with somebody else who is not you. But this totally does apply to you. So I don't want you to feel like this is just for large organizations or for big corporations. That's not the case at all. This stuff works on a very individual level. So the big challenge that we all face as leaders is this. It's changing human behavior. And the reason why I like 4DX as a platform was because it was created after over 1,500 successful implementations across companies, across hundreds of different real-world challenges. And really, any leadership initiative that any of us makes falls under two categories. Number one is what we call stroke of the pen initiatives. That's where if we have the authority to get something done, or if we have the resources to get something done, it's going to get done. We sign on a line and it gets done. And the other category of leadership initiatives are under behavioral change strategies. This is getting a lot of different people to do something that they've never done before, to do something different. For example, like improving customer experience, or higher quality, or faster responses, or better tenant service for a lot of our cases. Jim Stewart says in the book, to achieve a goal you've never achieved before, you must do things that you've never done before. I love that quote. The people are not the problem. Anytime the majority of the people in a system behave a certain way, the problem is not usually the people. The problem is inherent in the system. So here are the biggest breakdowns in execution. Number one, and you can follow along with me on the screen. Can you guys see this okay? Okay, cool, awesome. So number one is lack of clarity of the goal, of the objective. Number two is lack of commitment to the goal. Number three is not having accountability. And number four is the goals are not translated into specific actions. But the real biggest cause of all of this, why execution simply falls apart, is something that we call the whirlwind. It's the day job. It's the massive amount of energy that it takes just to keep the doors open, to keep the lights on. In real estate, it can be things like management, phone calls, email, your lead gen, utilities, taxes, whatever it is. These are all things that you have to do. They are urgent needs. They require your time. And the problem with the whirlwind is it's always competing with goals. They're always going to be butting heads. Any strategic goals you have are going to be fighting for their last breath to not get sucked into the whirlwind. So again, the whirlwind is urgent. All of this stuff that we have to do, we have to put energy towards it, otherwise the business fails. But the goals are the important part. And in the whirlwind, where it's urgent, it acts on you. And with your goals, you act on it. That's the difference. And it's been said that if you ignore the urgent today, it will kill you. But if you ignore the important, it'll kill you tomorrow. And I think that's so true. When you undertake a behavioral change strategy, you'll be battling the whirlwind. So there are rules for executing in the face of the whirlwind. That's good news. The bad news is there's consequences if you violate them. So what I want to take you through today are the actual disciplines or the rules that will help you execute regardless of your day-to-day whirlwind. We're going to move pretty fast. So discipline number one is to focus on the wildly important. Focus on the wildly important. The more you try to do, the less you're actually going to accomplish. So it's about focusing on one or two wildly important goals at the most, instead of trying to improve everything at once. And the wildly important goal is what this system calls the WIG. The WIG, the wildly important goal. You're going to hear a lot about the WIG throughout this morning. So that's what we're referring to, the wildly important goal. The WIG is the goal that matters most. And failing to achieve it will make every other accomplishment seem inconsequential. I love that. It's very clear. You must communicate this to your team. And if it's just you, you must communicate it continually to yourself and whoever you're accountable to. I love this example of trying to put a hole in a piece of paper using 5 fingers, applying equal pressure at the same time. It's virtually impossible to do that. If you take one finger and try to stick it through a piece of paper, you can do it pretty easily. But if you try to apply even pressure with 5, it's impossible. This is the same principle. This is about achieving laser focus towards your 1 or 2 WIGs that makes your team easily able to distinguish what your priorities are. and what are the whirlwinds. So your team has to know the difference. You have to know the difference. And so again, it's a small set of focused, achievable targets. That's the first discipline. Discipline number 2 is to act on lead measures. This is about that some actions have more impact than others when reaching for a goal. It's usually a small number of actions. How many of you have read the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown? I just finished it. Another great read. Again, very, very great ideas. Maybe not as heavy on implementation, but the one thing that I really like that he said is that in reality, only a tiny fraction of everything that we do really will be towards achieving a bigger goal or a big outcome. It's a tiny fraction of things. It's as we talk about in Pareto's principle, the 20-80 rule. Some of you guys have heard that. So our progress and success toward the WIG will be based on 2 things: lead measures and lag measures. So let's talk about what those are. Lag measures are things like revenue, cash flow, market share, number of doors, all things like that, sales. Once you get the lag measure, it's too late to do anything about it. It's already in the past. When you receive these numbers, the performance that drove them is already in the past. Does that make sense, guys? Cool. So lead measures, on the other hand, are predictive. They're predictive. And they can be influenced by you or the team. They measure the new behaviors that most influence success on your lag measures. And your lag measure simply is a measurement of how close you are to achieving that WIG. So these are the most high impact things that your team can do to reach the goal. Acting on lead measures is really one of the little known secrets of execution and are ultimately what will help you get the lag measures. We're going to get into some practical application of these things, so don't worry. Discipline 3 is to keep a compelling scoreboard. Keep a compelling scoreboard. Here's the reason why. People play differently when they are keeping score. Having a scoreboard is so that you can know at any moment in time whether you're winning or losing. The player's scoreboard is solely for and usually created by the players, and it's different from a leader's scoreboard. How many of y'all watched the Super Bowl the other night? So how many people think it would have been a lot less fun if you watched it without knowing what the score was? It just seems like practice. Like if you're not keeping score, it just feels like practice. It must be so simple that the members of the team can know instantly by looking at it whether they're winning or losing. That's what this is about. And it keeps people engaged in spite of the raging constant whirlwind. So, and at a high level, we're gonna dive in depth to these disciplines a little more. But the last discipline is to create a cadence of accountability. And this is where the execution really happens. The first 3 disciplines simply set up the game. Until you implement discipline 4, you're actually not in the game. Unless we hold each other consistently accountable, the goal will naturally disintegrate in the whirlwind. I can't remember who it was, but there was a Fortune 500 executive that said, from our priorities, we're not battling dragons that swoop down out of the sky to knock us off our priorities. What we're battling are gnats. Gnats that constantly fly in our face and distract us from the goal. And this is where the cadence of accountability helps keep us focused in spite of all that. It's gnat repellent, so to speak. So these are through regular, frequent, high-energy meetings that we call WIG sessions. No more than 20 to 30 minutes each week. And each week, one by one, team members answer a simple question. They say, what are the 1 or 2 things I can do this week outside the whirlwind that will have the biggest impact on the scoreboard? That's the question that you ask. The secret of this is that the team members create their own commitments. If you're a leader and you're leading a team, you don't create the commitments for them. They create their own. If you're a solopreneur and it's just you and a spouse, obviously you're each going to create your own commitments. And it creates a just-in-time execution plan. So let's dive in. We're going to go in depth to each of these 4 disciplines and how we can apply them as business owners. I think most of you said you're business owners, as investors. And yes, you can even apply these to your personal life. I heard an example of a father helping coach his daughter to make the basketball team. Making the basketball team is obviously the WIG. So what were the lead measures that it took to get her there? So these things apply to things like weight loss. Obviously, it's why Weight Watchers works incredibly well, because it has all of these things. You have the WIG, you have the lag measure, you have the lead measure, you have a cadence of accountability, which is your weekly weigh-in. It's why it works for all of these things. And if you are a team of one, how many of you guys are like more on the solopreneur or husband and wife or small team side of things? Okay, that's fine, that's good. So the reason I like this is it probably applies even more if we're teams of one, because we're being pulled in a million different directions. If you're a solopreneur, there's chances are that you're the bookkeeper. You're the property manager maybe. You're the guy finding the deals. You're the marketing guy. You're all of these things. So it's even more important to have these frameworks in place if you are a small business or a solopreneur. And we're going to be going through this process actually live on stage today together to make sure the talk is very interactive. Again, I don't want this just to be me up on stage. So we're able to take this framework and actually put it into work. So at some point, I may be calling on some volunteers throughout the morning. So anybody who's feeling brave and willing to come up and help me, that would be much appreciated. So let's dive in depth on the 4 disciplines. So again, number 1, focus on the wildly important. Focus on 1 or 2 WIGs at a time, and any more, you're going to fail. Here's the thing that helped me. This statement, I don't know why it meant so much to me. Probably because I have these ideas all the time. A lot of us as high motivators, our challenge is not to do more. It's to not do less. There will always be more good ideas than there is capacity to execute. I like this quote from Tim Cook. He says, "Say no to the good and even great ideas so you can put enormous energy behind the ones that you choose." That's Tim Cook. That's why Apple, they have practically one phone. And so the traps are, number 1, having tons of good ideas. And trap number 2 that you'll find as you put this into place is trying to turn everything into the whirlwind into a WIG. Trying to turn everything in the whirlwind into a WIG. So if you want high focus from yourself, from your team members, you have to have something to focus on. So how do you determine your WIG? That's the big question. Determining the WIG is done by answering really one seemingly simple question. And the question is this: if every other area of your business, your operation, remained at a standstill, what is the one area where change would have the greatest impact? So you've got your notepads in front of you. What I want you to do is, whether you came here this morning with a goal in your head or not, put everything else out and just take a minute to think about that question. And how does it apply to you as a business owner, as an investor? If every other area of your business remained at a standstill, what is the one area where change would have the greatest impact? Just go ahead and write it down. You can think about it for a minute. There's no right or wrong answer, but for you guys, what would that be? And you'll probably find that it's harder to come up with something than you think. For some of you guys, you're like, oh, I know exactly what it is. Has everybody got something written down? Okay, cool. So the reality is that even though you've got this, 80% of your efforts and your team's efforts are still going to be spent maintaining the whirlwind. Once a WIG is achieved, it goes back into the whirlwind. So since you've got that written down, you've got it in your head a little bit, there are 4 rules of focus that can help us keep our eye on the prize, to help us keep our eye on the WIG, the wildly important goal. And rule number 1 is that no team can focus on more than 2 WIGs at a time. If you can do 1, that's great. 1 or 2. Number 2, the battles that you choose must help win the war. Now, what do I mean by that? If you think about it, this is kind of what it looks like. So let's say this is your ultimate high-level goal, whatever that goal is. Every other little battle that you choose has to help win that war. These are kind of what we would call sub-WIGs. And the question that we want to be asking ourselves is, what is the fewest number of battles that it can take for us to win the war? So rule number 3 is that senior leaders, if you're overseeing a team, this doesn't apply so much to solopreneurs, but senior leaders can veto, not dictate WIG ideas. It's got to come from the team. And rule number 4, all WIGs must have a finish line in the form of from X to Y by when. And this is what we call the lag measure. From X to Y by when. It has to be in this format. Some might be 6 months, some might be 1 month, some might be 3 months, some might be a year or 2 or 3 years. And remember that a WIG it's not a strategy, it's a tactical goal with a limited time frame. The WIG has to have a finish line. So here's what I want you to do. Whatever that WIG, that one thing that you just wrote down, turn it into this format. Turn it into from X to Y by when. If your goal is to have 1,000 apartment units and you have 100 now, it would be from 100 apartment units to increase my inventory from 100 apartment units to 1,000 apartment units by whatever you think is a realistic goal by December 31st. So go ahead and do that right now. Just take 30 seconds. Turn your WIG into this format from X to Y by when. Again, there's no wrong answer. Just pick numbers that you feel like it's a game that you can win or your team can win. And remember, you're not picking the entire strategy for your life or for your organization. You're picking a tactical goal with a limited time frame. Because once you knock it out, you can move on to the next thing. It's not your mission statement. It's not your vision statement. It's a tactical goal that you have to achieve. So again, the WIG must have a finish line. Has everybody got something written down? Yeah? You guys with me? Yeah. All right, we're all awake. Okay, cool. We'll make sure. So Steve Jobs says, I'm as proud of what we don't do as I am of what we do. I love it. Such a good quote. Narrowing our focus increases both our accountability and our engagement of our team. And this whole exercise takes us from 12 or 13 or 15, we really hope to goals, to 1 or 2, no matter what goals. You guys see the difference between that? If we set out 12 or 15, we're not going to hit them. We're not going to hit any of them. Chances are we'll achieve 0 of them. If we have 1 or 2, it's doable. So discipline 1 makes the strategy executable. It translates concepts to targets. It moves from vague strategic intent to specific finish lines. That's really what discipline 1 is all about. Okay, so this is where I'm going to ask for a volunteer. So of you guys who wrote something down, is anybody willing to shout out what you wrote down? Yeah, Billy. Catchbox. Tom Brady, that crap. We got Billy Brown in the front. Read out your WIG in from X to Y by when format.
Don't need to read it because I know it. So I want to syndicate a 100-unit apartment complex by June 30th, 2019.
Okay, say that one more time because I'm going to write it down up here, okay?
Syndicate
a
100-unit apartment complex by June 30th, 2019.
By June 30th. That's good. How many people think that's a clear WIG? Yeah, achievable. I know Billy, and I know that's highly achievable. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. We're gonna actually dive a little more into that. So thank you for volunteering. Toss that back up there, Jericho. So let's talk about number 2, acting on lead measures. Remember, lead measures are the measures of activities most closely with achieving the goal. A lag measure is hard to do anything about. Lead measures, remember, are both predictive and influenceable. A lead measure tells you how likely you are to achieve, and it's virtually within your control. So discipline 2 is, in my mind, probably the hardest of all of them because it's about measuring something that's really hard to measure. It's about measuring behavior. So each day or week, you or your team are going to decide which actions you're going to do that are going to drive the lead measures. And this allows for just-in-time planning. Remember, lead measures are predictive and influenceable. Measuring is the important part, and it's hard work because it's the data that we need. The reason why so many of us as business owners are focused on these lag measures like sales and numbers and cash flow and things is because they're easy to get. They're numbers that are really simple to get. If you're trying to grow your Instagram from 0 to 1,000 followers in a day, it's easy to tell what the lag measure is. You can just log on Instagram and it says, I have 847 followers. The lead measure, on the other hand, is the hard part. So, one big thing that kind of hit me over the head was that sales are always a lag measure. I think for me as a business owner, I focus so much on revenue and sales and while those are the end goal, we need those. We want the lag measure. This part is not about measuring that. It's about measuring behavior. And W. Edwards Deming says, running a company or running anything by looking at the financial data is like trying to drive by looking in the rear view mirror. I thought that one was convicting to me anyway, because I've spent way too much time on that. And so defining lead measures, let's talk about how we actually define them. Simply breaking up an annual lag measure into more frequent monthly or even daily lag measures is still a lag. It's uninfluenceable. Even a daily lag measure is still a lag. So you've got to think of the WIG as like a great rock, and your lead measures are like the lever. If it was a question of effort, you and your team probably would have moved it already. So it's not a question of effort. Remember, to achieve a goal you've never achieved before, you must do things you've never done before. So identifying lead measures. Lead measures are all about behavior. And how do we identify them? You got to think about what are your 80-20 activities, the Pareto's principle. If you have a larger team, you can look at who are your top performers, and you can extrapolate their behaviors. What are they doing? What's the top 20% doing? You can also get to know or interview or take people to coffee or come to Music and Money and hear from high performers and hear what are the behaviors that they're doing. Those are the kind of questions that you want to be asking. You don't want to be asking about what did you achieve. You want to ask, okay, how did you achieve it? What were the things that you did on a day-to-day basis that made the biggest difference towards you achieving your goals? And you can also think back over times when you personally were the most effective. What were you doing during those times? Were you waking up earlier? Were you eating more healthy? Were you making more sales calls? Were you checking reports more often? Whatever it is. Think about those times when you're the most effective and extrapolate the behaviors from those, because those are a pretty good place to start. And remember, sales are always a lag measure. This part's about measuring behavior. Lead measures are usually already there in business. The trick is just that nobody's tracking them. And the key is to isolate and consistently track the right measures so that you can manage to the data. So a good question for lead measures to ask is, above sustaining our day-to-day operation, what are the one or two things our team could do to improve the WIG the most? So some ideas. Things in real estate or investing. I mean, it could be, make X number of quality sales calls, which is quality is defined by your checklist per day, or submit X number of offers per week, or have 4 check-in conversations with your property manager each month if your goal is improving cash flow per property. It can be even something as simple as read 1 real estate book per month. If you're starting at the very beginning, maybe the goal is education and learning these things. Maybe it could be analyze 2 new real estate markets per day that fit your investment criteria. Any other ideas? What could be a lead measure perhaps for Billy as he is striving to achieve 100 units by June 30th? And Billy, if you have the ideas, you're welcome to shout them out too. Anybody's got an idea of what could be a lead measure that could potentially drive that? We got a guy back in the corner. Catch box. There he is.
Don't forget to rest just a little bit.
Don't forget to rest a little bit.
A little Sabbath while you're working. It's very important.
A little Sabbath. Okay. I like that, but I'm going to challenge you. It's actually not a lead measure
Pardon
because it's not specific enough.
Pardon me.
So what could that mean? Could that mean
Set time to do the things you love outside of this business so you're pumped up to do your business.
okay? And even more
Set time on
specifically,
Sunday to make sure you rest and spend time
how
with
many
people you
hours
love.
on Sunday?
For me, the majority of my Sunday.
Okay, so that could be a lead measure. What else? Any other lead measures that would drive? Let's toss it down to Billy here. You can toss it over here. It could be one or two things.
So this is the one that's been the most struggle for me that, because I'm pretty shy, but letting people know about that goal, which is, it forced me out of my comfort zone to go do that. So now I am forced to go talk to more commercial realtors, people in the multifamily world going, this is what I want to do, send me what you have. So just making that known so I can go attract that goal. That is probably the biggest thing there. Now how to go track that is, I don't know. I mean, how many realtors do I reach out to? I mean, I've got a database of probably 1,000. I can just send out one email.
So yeah, what are those things that you can control? Like go backwards. Are the you okay there?
I got you.
Are the emails the lead measure? Is that the thing that gets you the result, which is the conversation, or that's the start of it? It could be an email, it could be a phone call. Really, what I would dump it all into is just X number of conversations per week.
Yeah, we're there. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say what you should do is, because what the thing about the lead measures is the effort.
Yeah.
So what the result is what's always a lag. The result is always what we can look at in sales, but we never used to looking at the lead, which is the effort. So the effort is you set and say, okay, if I need to talk to a certain amount of commercial investors, a certain amount of commercial brokers, then what you're going to say is, on Saturday, I am going to finish the day with 4. At the end of the week, I'm going to talk to 20. So you have to give yourself a specific number. And when you go over that number, now you went over that lead measure. If you go under that number, now you have something that you can look back on and say, why didn't I?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I would lump that all into, just like you said, it's those conversations per week or per day. A lead measure can be daily or it can be weekly. It can't be more than that because it's got to be where you can learn from it each week. So maybe you start with saying, I want to have 3 quality conversations per day with potential clients, buyers. Who would it be that you're looking for? Commercial realtors and wholesalers. So, give yourself an achievable target. Is it set, 3 conversations per day or 5 conversations per week or something? And those are the things that you actually track. Is there any other ideas on the lead measures front? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question because in your goal, it was actually 2 things to syndicate and a 100-unit apartment complex. So I think one of your goals has to be to search for the apartment complexes, the deals, and then number 2, the investors of the syndication.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Those are 2 really good lead measures. So what are some of the things that you can be doing behaviorally that find you the property in the first place? That sounds like your lead measures. Like that's lead measure 1. And is that just driving around? What's the most effective way for you to have those? Or is it just conversations? Is it you on MLS?
Yeah, for me, it's the conversations that I have time to drive around.
Yeah.
I've got council staff.
Yeah.
My thought was once you have the property and analyze it, and I have skill set to do that, the syndication will become easier. Because of that, you find the right deal.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always the case. There's way more money than there are deals available. So I think those are 2 really good lead measures, kind of similar lead measures. You could even potentially lump them under one, but just quality conversations with somebody that could lead to a property acquisition. And then obviously your other part of the conversation is raising the money, right? So those are very good lead measures. So think about how you would actually want to write that down, because I am going to write it up here on the board in just a minute. So as you can tell, you can toss that back up to Jericho if you want to. As you can tell, tracking lead measure data is hard. It's the hardest part because it's not stuff that we, this thing is going to be awesome. I love it already. We should have our own Super Bowl here with the catch box. We may score more points than they did the other night. I don't know. I heard it was a really low-scoring game, wasn't it? Like a record or something? Yeah. So, anyway, let's dive into discipline number 3. This is where we keep a compelling scoreboard. Keep a compelling scoreboard. Everyone needs to know the score at all times so they can tell whether they're winning or losing. And here's the thing. Knowing lead and lag measures as a concept versus a team that actually knows their score, there's a night and day difference. Just knowing these things as a concept and actually knowing the score, it's important to have a visual scoreboard that you update regularly. People disengage when they don't know the score. A compelling scoreboard tells the team where they are and where they should be. So there's a couple different kinds of scoreboards. There's a coach's scoreboard. This includes things like lag measures, maybe trends, projections, spreadsheets, all this data that we as maybe a leader of a team or an organization need. But what we're talking about here is the player's scoreboard. It's far simpler than that. The rule is, it's like 5-second rule. Did anybody ever use that, like in parenting, 5-second rule? Or 15-second rule? Anybody go higher than 15 seconds? Nobody wants to admit it. I think we've gone much higher than that. 5-second rule. In 5 seconds or less, anyone can determine by looking at it at a glance if they're winning or not. That's the level of simplicity that it needs to have. The fundamental purpose of the player's scoreboard is to motivate players to win. And here is the catch. Team members themselves must be keeping score. It's not you as the leader keeping score for them. Each person keeps score of what they're doing. And one question that popped in my head is like, well, how do you trust that your people on your team are going to give you an accurate score? Well, you don't, but the rule is, as a leader, trust but verify, if you can, just like anything in life. If you've got a trustworthy team, chances are people are not going to cheat the system, and truth comes to light over time with a system like this, because you'll see whose behaviors are actually moving the lag measure, are people actually doing it. So my advice with that, and the advice that I've been given, is not to worry too much about that. So team members themselves must be keeping score. So let's talk about the 5 keys of a compelling scoreboard. Number 1, it's got to be simple. Really, really simple. Number 2, it's got to be visible. You have to be able to see it, easily seen by the team, because visibility drives accountability. So number 3 is to show both the lead and the lag measures. Number 4, like we talked about, 5-second rule. Can I tell at a glance if I'm winning or not? And number 5, it shows where you are now and where you should be by now. Let me just pull up a couple really simple picture examples of some scoreboards that people have created. So you can see this is a really good example. This is simple. This is Falcon Force. I have no idea what they are or what they do. But they want to go from 41 to 106 by week 52, 2014. So you can see this is their trend line. This is where they should be. And this is where they are. So this is how you can tell at a glance if you're winning or not. So they've started off good. If their line was like this, Falcon Force maybe took a dip here, and then they would know if they're losing or not. And then underneath it, so it shows the lag measure. This is your lag measure in your WIG, and these are your lead measures. For them, number of appointments and number of presentations. Those were the 2 lead measures that they chose to accomplish their goal. And these over on the side are the various team members. And this just highlights your weeks. So remember, the team is keeping track. So this person over here, I can't tell what that says. Timothy, it looks like he had 16 appointments that first week. And so whether or not that says the goal, yes, it does. Okay. The goal is over on the left side. So the whole point is that it should show you the lag and it should show you the lead, and you're keeping track. Another example, this is a more electronic, super digital one, but this is really the idea. This is what should be here. The WIG, move X to Y by when, that's your lag measure, 100 units by June 30th, syndicate 100 units by June 30th, and it gives you your trend line and it gives you your actual. So you would see right there, they're a little bit short. You chart 1 or 2 lead measures, do something twice a week or do something every day. Did you do it? Simple yes or no. It doesn't have to be complicated. This is like very elementary school stuff. When I saw the level of organizations that are actually doing this, people like Opryland Hotel. One of the great success stories of 4DX is Opryland Hotel, right here in our backyard. And what they knew they needed to improve was their customer satisfaction scores. So that was their WIG, to improve their customer satisfaction scores from, I think it was 48%, which was low, to 68%. And they determined that was the number they wanted to reach. And they did it by using this. So it seems very elementary, but these are big organizations that are using this on a day-to-day level. Here's another example. This one is a little more complex, but still kind of meets all the characteristics. Type 1 and 2 customers, I'm not totally sure what that means. This is where they are. This is where they should be. These are their lead measures, which you can't really read what they are, but I'm sure if you were at the office, you could tell. So that's a good example. So Discipline 3 takes your team from playing in the dark to playing in the light. It creates a game for your team. And data is a lot like light. It's the best growth agent known. So team engagement. If I was to ask you guys, what do you think is the number one motivator for employees or team members? What do you think that would be? Recognition? Okay. Progress? Satisfaction? Whoever said progress, you were right. It's results that are a determining factor in employee and team engagement more than anything else. More than pay, more than benefits, more than anything. People want to feel like they're winning. Winning is a more powerful driver of engagement than any of those things. It lets us experience achievement, which as humans is something that we all have to feel. We all have to feel this. So remember that the first 3 disciplines that we talked about set up the game, but it's discipline 4 that actually puts us in the game. So as you can see, I've kind of been creating, and I was going to ask somebody who had better handwriting than me, but I went ahead and did it because it's not pretty, but it's going to illustrate the point. I've been creating our scoreboard on stage with the audience. So Billy, why don't you come up here really quick? You probably have better handwriting than I do. No? We're in a bad shape then. We're in bad shape. So I'm going to have Billy come up. We've got, give it up for Billy Brown, by the way, being a brave soul. Appreciate you. So let's talk about your WIG. We've got the WIG at the top, syndicate 100 units by June 30th. So, whoa, I'm going to knock this thing over as we go. So let's say up here is June 30th. Where are we now? What is today? Hold that button on the bottom. Getting him? I love technology. Did you replace the battery? Here.
Working now?
Not yet. Just, you can talk to me. So let's say this is June 30th. Where are we at right now? What's today?
February 6th, is that right?
So February 6th. So really, this is kind of well, let me ask you this. Is it a binary, like 100-unit apartment complex, or is this like you want to send, okay, one. Okay, so this is kind of a binary goal. You're either going to hit it or you're not.
Yeah, it's a yes or a no.
It's a yes or a no. So this is going to be a little trickier to track, but that's okay. No, it's great. And we'll dive in a little bit more to this, but there are also different types of visualizations. You could have the trend lines like we're talking about, which is kind of like that. And you can also have and on, which is literally just red, green, or yellow lights. So you can literally have that. If I'm in red, it means I haven't won yet. If I'm in yellow, it means I'm on the right track. If I'm green, it means I'm winning. You can also have a speedometer. You can have, you know how they have those like fundraiser things, the thermometer thing. So that's a good way to do it. So let's talk about your lead measures. What are the lead measures actually going to be?
So I think with our conversation here, My lead measures are going to be conversations with people that have the property I need. I mean, am I catch track right? Yeah. Well, probably with the commercial realtors is going to be the most logical one. But let's say conversations, because it could be wholesalers, it could be, property owners. But we'll start with realtors.
Property sources, maybe.
Sources, that's right.
Conversations with your property sources.
Yeah.
So that's your first one. Is there another one?
Probably, what did you guys say? That our source there is
In my handwriting?
driving. Man, I do not have time for that. I have to outsource this thing. So the good thing is, as a lender, I actually have a lot of people contact me about leads they might not need, lending for. So I get some of that. Maybe wholesalers, maybe, probably look at LoopNet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is conversations the one lead measure that you want to track?
Let's track that one, because that's, I haven't done that yet. I haven't put myself out there like I am here between you guys and the thousands on the internet here.
Okay.
Keep me accountable. Yeah.
So how many do you think realistically to start with? How many are you having right now?
See, I haven't tracked it, so I don't know. Probably, I'd say if I want to set a goal, probably at least 2 a day would be probably a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two per
You think that's good? I don't know. What- Or you just got a Jody and she knows everything, so she knows where all the properties are.
So it's going to end up looking something like this. So really on your team, and do you have anybody holding you accountable for this too? Is it just you and your wife?
Me and my wife and
Partner?
everyone out there. So.
Everyone out there. Okay, so let's put Billy as team member number 1. What's your wife's name?
Allison.
Allison, okay. We'll just put her on here. She doesn't have to be the one doing this, but really you can use this for yourself too. But for instance, 2 conversations with property sources per day. If you did the first day, let's say you had 4. Then the second day you had 3. Then the third day you had 1 because you were watching the Patriots rerun or something like that. And then, so just so on and so forth. You're going to just be keeping track, and seeing this helps you know your actual progress. You're not even going to be worried about a second lead measure, but that's really all it's about. It's about looking at the scoreboard and knowing at a glance whether you're winning or not. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. Give it up for Billy and his bravery being up here with us. So that's really all the whiteboard is about. You guys can make it your own. You can go way more in depth. You can, if any people are artistic or crafty, you can. I've seen like paper mache ones. I've seen there's one that says like beat the goat. Like there's a little goat that's the trend line, and you're like a ship or a Mr. T icon or something. Whatever you want to be, have fun with it. Like personalize it. So that's really all it's about. Discipline number 4 is where we create a cadence of accountability. So creating a cadence of accountability. This is where the execution actually happens. Brings the team members together, or you and your accountability partners together. So what is difficult and rare to achieve a critical goal is doing this while living in the midst of a raging whirlwind. And discipline 4, again, as we talked about, is played out through a weekly WIG session. Remember, the team meets weekly for no longer than 20 to 30 minutes. These are fast-paced. These are high energy. The discipline literally makes the difference between success and failure in this execution strategy. So keep your WIG session sacred weekly. It's the one meeting that you never cancel. The whirlwind is not allowed into the WIG session. I've been talking with, so as I mentioned, I talk to Brandon once a week. He's kind of been my accountability on a lot of things, Brandon Turner, and he's been implementing it in his teams at Bigger Pockets. And the hardest part for them has not been having the WIG sessions, it's been keeping the whirlwind out of the WIG sessions. Because as team members, we all start talking about these things, so we have to be militant about, okay, this WIG session is sacred. It is literally focused on the wildly important goal and nothing else. So here's the agenda for a typical WIG session. It's just 3 things. Number 1, you account. You report on your commitments made and did you do them or not. Number 2, you review the scoreboard. So you can learn from your successes and failures. A lot of the time there's going to be a big delay in time between your lead measures and your lag measure success, especially if you have a goal like Billy's, where it's literally just, it's going to be binary. It's 0 or 1. It's a win or a loss, which is a great goal to have. But you're going to learn from your successes. What are the things that are actually moving you towards those, and what are the things that are not? So learn from your successes and failures and talk through that. And then number 3 is where you plan. Clear the path for each other and make new commitments. We'll talk about what clearing the path means, but it's making commitments is about committing to do 1 or 2 specific things each week, each team member, and then reporting to each other next week on your results. So team members must prepare for these meetings by asking, this is before the meeting, what are the 1 or 2 most important things I can do to impact the lead measures? What are the 1 or 2 most important things I can do? And this is going to be your commitment that you'll share for the coming week. So how it plays out is it looks something like this. Your weekly commitments, can't really see that too well, but weekly commitments are influenceable. Those drive the lead measures when done right and when they're high impact commitments. Lead measures are predictive of the lag measure and the result in the WIG. So that's how it all kind of plays out. The WIG session also gives team members a chance to process what is and what isn't working. If a lead measure is not moving the lag, then these meetings are a chance to discuss some new ideas, a new hypothesis. As a leader, should constantly be asking to our workers and to our peers, for that matter, what is something that I can do this week to clear the path for you to make your commitments? Is there something that needs delegated? Is there something else? Is there something that can be deferred? Or is there something that doesn't need done at all? This is the questions that we need to be asking to each other to help us keep the whirlwind from overtaking the WIG. So one side note, if you're in a company that has implemented this, if you're reporting to a boss and you have a team under you, chances are you're going to have 2 WIG sessions per week. You're going to have one with your leader and your peers, and then you're going to have one with your team. Each weekly commitment must meet 2 standards, and this is really, really important. Weekly commitments have to include a specific deliverable. They cannot be vague. They cannot be, this week I'm going to focus on training, or this week I'm going to work on finding more properties. Those are too vague. They're not specific. And the commitment must influence the lead measure. So just to give you guys a few examples, this is a hotel that was working to improve their sales scores, their revenue, and their profit from their events. So some examples of low impact commitments. Low impact commitment would be, I will focus on training this week. High impact commitment will be, I will work with Kim and Karen for 20 minutes each on improving their upselling scripts for our bar package, as well as practicing their delivery. You guys see the difference there? Another one, low impact commitment. I will attend the Chamber of Commerce meeting. High impact version of that. I will attend the Chamber of Commerce meeting and capture at least 3 new corporate contacts not currently holding events at our hotel. So on and so forth. I will do some interviews. I will interview 3 candidates for the open position on our team and make an offer to the one that best meets our requirements. Does that make sense? The difference between low and high impact commitments can make all the difference. And the WIG sessions are really kind of fun. It's like an ongoing science experiment on how to influence the scoreboard. So it's critical, again, that the commitments come from each participant. If you're a leader of a team, don't just tell them what to do. You can monitor and coach and encourage the quality of the commitments, make sure they meet these criteria. And even if they'd rather you just tell them what to do, that's not an option. Coach them. The commitments must truly come from them so they learn. And at the end of the day, this is what it's about. 4DX talks about pushing gray into the black. A gray week is our whirlwind. The black are our time slot commitments. And for any of you guys, if you have a meeting cancel, how long is it before something else fills that slot right back up? Anybody? Like immediately. Yeah, you never have free time. The whirlwind will overtake it. So this is about forcing the black into your all gray weeks. The gray doesn't want the black in your week. The reality is the vast majority of our energy will still be spent maintaining our day-to-day priorities. The weekly cadence helps keep morale up and really is an antidote to all gray weeks because it makes us perform each week. So after doing this, it's not going to click right away. I think for most teams, it's 3 to 4, maybe 2 months in that people really start to see and feel like they're achieving and they're winning. So you'll begin to feel that you and not the whirlwind are in control. That's ultimately the goal.
Will you summarize the gray and black?
The gray and black, yes. So that's a great question. So the gray is every responsibility that would fall under the whirlwind. Whatever the whirlwind, anything that's not your WIG, if you're in real estate, your property management, you're talking to your tenants, your taxes, you're scouting for new properties, all of this other stuff, any other meetings that you have to do. The whirlwind is gray, and the commitments represent the time slots that you've set to move those lead measures. Does that make sense? Yeah. So again, the full impact of the WIG sessions probably won't be felt right away. It usually takes a team, according to Franklin Covey, it takes them about 3 to 4 weeks to find its rhythm to solely focus on the agenda in these WIG sessions and to keep the whirlwind out. So WIG sessions inform us of what's going on. It creates an environment of peer accountability, and it's not top-down. It makes it much more peer-oriented, much more personal. So the real fun is when you can start to see the lag measure move. You can start to see if you've got an and on scoreboard, you start to see the red go to yellow, go to green, and that's the fun part. So in a little bit, we're actually going to have a little mock WIG session right here on stage with Billy, just to kind of play it out. We'll see what it looks like and what it feels like. So again, 40X becomes your new operating system. It is focusing on your WIG, acting on your lead measures, which are influenceable and predictive, keeping a regular, compelling scoreboard, and creating a cadence of accountability, which is your weekly WIG meeting. So what I wanted to kind of close out with, and we'll do the WIG session, but I wanted to talk about actually installing it in the team and what does it look like. So we're going to move pretty quickly through this part. And again, you don't need to worry about missing something. I'll send you all the slides if you text the number that was on the screen. So installing 40X in your team. Changing human behavior is a big job. It's a big task. I know that anybody who's tried to lose weight before can attest to that. With losing weight, there's 2 lead measures. It's eating less calories and doing more energy. It says easy, but does hard. That's the reality. Changing behavior is a really big task. So there's usually 5 stages of implementing 40X. Number 1 is getting clear. The leader's action is key to the implementation. You want to trust the process, and you want to be a model. If you are the leader, be a model of focus on the WIG. Schedule weekly WIG sessions and actually hold them. So getting clear, that's the first part, the clarity. Number 2, the launch phase. In launch, it's intense involvement from the leader at this point in the process. What's simple to plan is difficult to launch. Some are going to be more smooth than others. It's just the reality. It's not guaranteed to go smoothly. And in your team, if you're managing a team, there are going to be your models, your potentials, and your resistors. Those are the 3 categories of people. And you got to just, again, remain focused, stay persistent, trust the process, and to identify who are the models, who are the potentials, who are the resistors. So you can kind of know who to coach and how to help them. Stage 3 is adoption. That's where the team finds its rhythm. The focus is on adherence to the process and then the results, not the other way around. This is not an overnight strategy. Resistance fades, the team finds its rhythm in the adoption phase. And then we move into optimization. That's where the mindset of your team shifts to 40X. And the team learns what playing to win feels like. So as a leader, it's really important to recognize, encourage, and celebrate team efforts when there are wins. And if it's just you, celebrate your own progress. And then the last stage is when it finally turns to habits. And that's the end goal. That's a culture of execution, of sustained high performance. It's when 4DX becomes ingrained and the new operational standard is not a result or the lag measure, but it's adherence to the lead measures, superior lead measure performance. So let's talk a little bit about moving the middle. This is for teams. If you're managing a team of 10 people, let's say, chances are 2 are going to be resistant to this process, 6 are going to be your potentials, and 2 are going to be the models. The models are great. They're the ones who adopt it. They run with it. The potentials are the ones that you want to work on moving the middle. Move your potentials over to your models. And that's the goal. You can do this through coaching, and it's a worthy challenge because once you have people over on the right side, that's when this thing is working full steam ahead. So let's talk really quickly about the installation. Installing discipline 1 to focus on the wildly important. Again, to review, how do you find the WIG? We went through it really quickly earlier with Billy, but when you have some true time to sit down and do this on your own, it's a process of a couple hours, of a few hours. So step 1 is to discover all the possibilities. What could all the WIGs be? What are they? Just make a huge list. Step number 2, rank by the impact. So, and remember, there can be kind of an overall, if you have an organization, and there can be team WIGs as well too. Make sure that the team WIGs are selected by how they impact the overall organizational WIG if you're in that situation. Step 3 is to test your top ideas. Test top ideas. Is the team WIG aligned to the overall WIG? Is it measurable? Who owns the results? Is it the team or is it some other team? Who owns the game? Is it the team or the leader? These are different ways you can test because you don't want to ask the team to play a flawed game. And then step 4, define the WIG. Billy's got a great WIG. It starts with a verb. It has a lag measure from X to Y by when. It's simple. Keep it simple. And focus on what, not how. And you want to make sure that the WIG is achievable. You want to create a WIG that is both worthy and winnable at the same time. So, for example, increase revenue from wholesaling by $2 million to $3 million by December 31st. That's a good, simple, specific WIG. Or in Billy's case, to syndicate 100 apartment units by June 30th. So from 0 to 100 by June 30th. So the deliverable for this part is a team WIG and lag measure. So, and as we said, for the example, to increase wholesaling revenue by $2 million to $3 million by December 31st. So let's talk about installing discipline 2. Act on the lead measures. Remember, lead measures can be counterintuitive. Lead measures are often hard to keep track of, and they can often look too simple. There are really 2 different types of lead measures. Number 1 is small outcomes, which is you or your team achieving a weekly result. You're actually going after the result, small result, and leveraged behaviors. So perform the specific behavior rather than achieve the specific result. Neither is better than the other. You just have to pick which feels like a better fit for your team. So again, how do you define and find the right lead measures? Number 1, discover the possibilities. Make a big list. Do all the brainstorming. Identify new and better actions that maybe you haven't been doing. Or what are some things that you're already doing really well that you may just need to leverage and do more of? That can be a lead measure as well too. Step 2, rank by impact. Is it when you rank by impact, you got to watch out because after you have your list of potential lead measures, it's going to feel like, well, we need to do all of these things. And that's the trap because they're all good things. But remember, the more you try to do, the less energy that you'll be able to have to give to the one thing. And then step 3 is to test your top ideas. Is it predictive of achieving the WIG? Is it influenceable? Can you truly influence it every week? Is it an ongoing process or is it a once and done kind of thing? They advise at Franklin Covey really to avoid doing once and dones because they aren't habit forming. Is it a leader's game or is it a team game? Can it be measured? Is it even worth measuring? So you must find or invent new ways to manage this lead measure behavior. And then the last step is to define the lead measure. Are we tracking, remember, team or individual performance? Are we tracking the lead measure daily or weekly? What's the quantitative standard, like how much or how often? What's the qualitative standard, like to what degree, to what level am I to perform? And does it start with a verb? Is it simple? And when thinking about a process that has several steps, like maybe how many of you guys are in sales out there? In any kind of sales? Got a few people. So sales is very much a process. When you're working in a process, rather than trying to fix a whole process, pinpoint the part or parts of your process that are weak and focus on those as your lead measures. How can you improve those rather than trying to fix the whole process? So again, the deliverable for this part is 1 or 2 lead measures that will move the lag measure of the WIG. Like submit 7 offers per week on a single family home that meet our criteria, or complete 6 sales calls per day that meet my call quality checklist. And that was another thing, Billy, I was going to bring up too, is do you have a checklist of when I have those conversations, what are the key points that I want to be making? What defines an actual quality call or a quality conversation? Am I going to, just even kind of scripting that out a little bit? Not that you have to, but it can be a good thing in many times. So we've got through the lead measures, we've got through the WIG, installing discipline 3, which is to keep a compelling scoreboard. Really simple. We've kind of walked through it a little bit already. But step 1 is to choose a theme. Now, I'm not talking like Pirates of the Caribbean or Super Bowl or whatever it is. The theme can be trend lines. It's what type of chart is it? Is it trend lines? Is it a bar chart? Is it a speedometer? Is it just a simple red, yellow, or green kind of thing? It can be any one of those things. So, and then you can personalize it from there. Step 2 is to design the scoreboard. Keep it simple. And can the team see it easily? It's got to contain both the lead and the lag measures. And it's got to contain the actual and target results. Remember, that's really important. Step 3 is to actually build it. You want to keep your team, if you have a team, heavily involved in this. And step 4, keep it updated at least weekly. So who's responsible for updating it? When is it going to be updated? Set a time every week. When is it going to be posted? How often will it be updated? So the deliverable for this part, really simple, a scoreboard that keeps the team engaged. Jim Stewart says, without clear, visible measures, the same goal will mean 100 different things to 100 different people. Are y'all with me still? Yeah. Cool. Just got a little bit more, and then we're gonna dive into this WIG session. Discipline 4, create a cadence of accountability. How do we install this? Discipline 4 is the one weekly meeting that you never cancel. Remember, here's how a WIG session goes. Number 1, you account. You report on the last week commitments. Number 2, you review the scoreboard. Number 3, you plan. You clear the path and make new commitments. So the key is we're going to talk about commitments a little more, making high impact commitments for the coming week. And it's just got to be 1 or 2 things that impact the scoreboard, the most important things. Take personal responsibility for your commitments. And think this week. Any more, it's hard to ensure that you're going to make the commitment. Any less, you probably won't be able to achieve a meaningful result. So performance on the scoreboard is the other part. Without this, people are going to be tempted to make commitments to the whirlwind and not to the WIG. Remember, it's important to learn how to separate those. So what you want to watch out for is competing whirlwind responsibilities or holding WIG sessions with no specific outcomes. And also, repeating the same commitment more than 2 consecutive weeks. That means if you didn't get it done, your commitment should be to finish that plus your commitment for the next week. Also, watch out for accepting unfulfilled commitments. It's not conditional. We don't want to be making conditional commitments on whether something will come up or not. Because the reality is something always comes up. Something is always going to come up. We're always going to have stuff in the whirlwind that's going to be vying for our attention. So the keys to successful WIG sessions are to hold them as scheduled. Keep them brief. Keep them 20 to 30 minutes, high energy. Set the standard as the leader. Post a scoreboard. Celebrate your successes. Share what we're learning with each other. refuse to let the whirlwind enter. Clear the path for each other. Ask, what can I do this week that will clear the path for you to make your commitment that you need to make? Execute in spite of the whirlwind, and remember that each person needs to come up with their own commitments. I'll send this to you guys, but there's a great little agenda that they provide in the book. Just has where it is, when it is, your WIG, your individual reports, commitments, scoreboard updates. And there's also a great little checklist that I'll send to you guys as well for successful WIG sessions. So the deliverable is a weekly WIG session. So, does anybody want to try to have an actual WIG session on stage? We'll have Billy. Can I get one more volunteer that'll pretend to be on Billy's team? And we'll use a catch box for this, because I don't think, did you get this working? Awesome. Everybody give it up for Billy Brown again. I need one other person who's willing to come up, and I don't have any wigs for us to wear. I have heard companies that actually wear wigs to their wig sessions. I need one more person. Jeremy, come on. Yeah, awesome. Give it up for Jeremy Newsom back there, helping us out. So we are going to have our weekly wig session. So there you go. Jeremy is a jumping man. I love that. Awesome. So it is. So we're going to prepare for this meeting by coming in having made a commitment already. So we're going to account. So we're going to start off by reviewing our, let's see where we're at on our scoreboard. We got 100 units by June 30th. Okay. And the lead measures are conversations. We're good. Okay. Conversations with your property sources. So this past week, I committed to sending Billy 3 contacts from my network of commercial real estate brokers, and I did that. So I'm proud to say that I did that.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Okay. So Billy?
So this week, I made contacts with those 3 people, and we have 3 distinct meetings set up to have further conversations about my specific requirements for that apartment complex.
Great to hear. Jeremy, what were your commitments?
My commitments for those specific 3 people were to reach out and actually ask them, have they ever done this before? Is this something they have experience with? Is this something that they want to do? Is this something that they have any interest in? Or am I talking someone who has no idea what they're trying or what we're trying to accomplish?
So kind of qualifying them.
Yep.
Great. Awesome. And you did it?
Yes. So I spoke with them specifically, learned their qualifications, made sure they are adequately set up to go forward with the process.
Okay, great. So we're going to account. What is step 2 in the process? If anybody knows, you can shout it out. Anybody paying attention?
Step 2.
Step 2 is to review the scoreboard. Account on what we did, account on our commitments, review the scoreboard. Okay, so here's our scoreboard. So before this meeting, you're going to want to come in and do exactly what we just did. We'll say this is Jeremy right here. And Jeremy, on day 1, you didn't do any. Why didn't you?
I had the flu, and my left knee was really hurting. So.
Okay. It's unconditional, my friend.
Yeah, it was the Sabbath.
Billy, it looked like your performance was really well. The scoreboard's looking great. We are
I'm a rock star and I want to kick Jeremy's butt, so that's my motivation.
Exactly. So it's really simple. We'll review the scoreboard. Looks good there. Billy, what happened on day 3 where you only did 1 and you said you were going to do 2?
Man, my daughter fell and broke her arm, so I had to cancel a couple meetings. That's why on week 4 we had some makeup sessions there.
So you made up for it. So good. So we'll recognize the effort there. And how's your daughter doing, by the way?
1 more week in the cast.
Okay. That's all I'm going to ask about that. So number 3 is we are going to plan. We're going to clear the path and make new commitments. So this week, I am going to commit to having a meeting with 4 different wholesalers on, let's get specific, in Davidson County.
Okay, I like that.
Who specialize in multifamily, and I will report back with the results of those meetings. That's my commitment for this week.
That's a great one. My commitment is I'm going to reach out to title companies who work with successful realtors like Michael Gomez that specialize in multifamily to see who they would recommend that I should talk to. And my goal is to have four leads by the end of the week and book 2 meetings.
Okay, that's a good commitment.
That's a very good commitment. Man, you guys taking notes out there. That was great. My commitment will be for this particular meeting. I'm going to go actually meet with someone who's already built 100 apartment units or more, and either in this county or at least in this state. So find specifically someone who's done it once, and find one person who has already built or developed. It could be a developer, so that's what it's going to be. So my commitment will be, and this is what happens in these meetings, right? You kind of brainstorm, you talk through it, people go, yes, that's what it's going to be. So the commitment would be find one person, speak to them who has developed a 100-unit or higher, it could be more obviously, but at least 100-unit apartment complex, and speak with a developer and ask them questions that might come up during that meeting.
Okay. That's good. And so this week, how can I clear the path for each of you to be able to make those commitments? Is there anything that I can do?
Seth, you're so benevolent. You're such a benevolent leader. Here's, aside from keeping my daughter healthy, which you cannot do. So the one thing there is referrals. Those are fantastic. Title companies and anyone inside your group there, especially syndicators that have done this before, I would love to have conversation with them. And then, if we're in a team meeting here and this is our company, I'd say let's try to keep the calendar clear off non-essential meetings that don't further the ball down the court with this goal.
I'll cancel your meetings on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah,
That's how I'll clear the path.
Appreciate it.
I've never had anyone ask me this question. This is so not, how can he help me clear the path? What a great leader. Great example. In this situation, this particular meeting, something that is helpful for me, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and one of my weaknesses is execution. So I have something that I need help with. I have a specific email that needs to be sent out. So I already have the email written. If you wouldn't mind queuing it up in the CRM and sending it out, and then following up with everyone who replies that email, so I can go ahead and go out and make that meeting happen. That would be great.
Okay. And then you ask it of each other as well, too.
Okay.
Jeremy, how can I clear the
And
path
to me,
for you?
too.
And, sorry. And Seth.
I hypothetically work for you in this.
This is nice. We had this on record, right? Seth, Jeremy, how can I clear the path for you guys to go achieve this wildly important goal?
So we've got this big promotion that we're doing on our 4-unit apartment complex because we want to get it rented up. Can I defer it to next week?
Yes.
Okay. That will clear the path for me.
Oh, man. Let's see. So I have these 2 clients who are coming into town on Tuesday who really want to play some golf. And as you know,
that's a good fit right
I'm not very good at playing golf. So I would love for you to cater to those clients, show them a great experience, show them a really good time so that I can work on facilitating another project that I have.
Sure. How much money do they have? They want to invest in an apartment complex.
That's right.
Yeah. And remember, not every answer is going to be yes. There's going to be some things that are unrealistic. I'm probably not going to be able to wash your car. Sorry, Jeremy. I know that was going to be your ask of me, but I probably won't be able to do that. So, but that's really kind of all there is to it this meeting. Jeremy would ask of how we could clear his path. And that's kind of the extent of what the meeting is. It doesn't need to be, if you're a team of 3 people, it can realistically be 5 or 10 minutes. And note how we did not talk about the whirlwind. We didn't talk about the tenants that were complaining in Unit 7D. We didn't talk about any taxes that need paid. It was on point. It was focused. We were accounting. We reviewed the scoreboard, and we planned and cleared the path for each other. So let's give it up for Billy and Jeremy, who were awesome participants in this wig session. I would say we have a free wig waiting for you backstage, but we do not. Maybe next time, get you a mullet wig. Anyway, that's kind of all there is to it.
automating it, just in case any of you guys are interested and really busy, which I'm sure all of you are, my4dx.com is a resource that Franklin Covey has made available to people. I've not personally used this before, but I know it's there, so I wanted to share it. So, that being said, any questions as we're wrapping up? Probably just got time for a couple, and then we will dismiss after that. Got Brad, yeah.
Check. Oh, there we go. Hey, we're implementing this this year into our business, and so we're in the beginning stages of it. It's fun. We're seeing some value already. But what do you think is the most sub-WIGs that a team member, like let's say a team member is kind of them doing it themselves? They don't have a team underneath of them that are implementing a lot. What do you think the maximum sub-WIGs should be that they're focused on at an individual time, like 1 or 2, or could should we keep it simple and just let them do 1 at a time and get that done if it's short term?
Yeah, I would say 1 or 2. The key is what you said. It's at a time. Doesn't mean that each WIG has to be like a year long. Like one wildly important goal might be executable in like a month or something.
Yeah, that's typically 1 or 2 month things that they're doing specifically.
Yeah, so the encouragement of this whole system is no more than 1 or 2 at a time for any team member, because any more and you just start to have deteriorating focus. So yeah, that's a great question, but I would say just keep it at 1 or 2.
Yeah, the reason I actually wanted to ask a question so I could throw this thing to somebody else. You got a question?
We got Billy down front. Oh! Thankfully, this thing is padded. He did put a good spiral on it.
You got the reach, man. Like, it was right there.
I was praying.
You didn't even blink, so that's... So kind of got a point there. One of the things, the reasons that I haven't achieved my goals in the past, and again, I'm about 45 here, is I got overwhelmed by everything. And I finally sat down this year, and it took me literally probably 4 days to go sit down and do the action steps. And what I did has been much like this. I haven't read the book yet. Is take it into quarters. You have your big annual goal, but then that's where I screwed up. Was it was too big and too long. So I took it into quarters and then monthly. And we're starting to see some progress and some personal goals that Alice and I have, where it's like exciting. It's like right there and the snowball is about to happen. And then it's amazing the energy that you have when you focus so much on one thing. And you break it down into small little bites, and that's all you focus on. It is amazing. So this is the accountability here and what you've done is amazing. And I'm going to start taking that into and tweaking it, and we'll report back hopefully in a couple.
Yeah, I would love to hear the results for sure. That's half the reason of this group too. We are now your public accountability. You've put the goal out there, and so it's a lot more to live up to.
Especially on that one. Anyone in the internet world too. If you got a 100-unit apartment complex, contact me.
There you go. Yeah. So it's good. Any other maybe one final question for over here?
Anyone?
That was pretty good this time, yeah. So now I'm looking at your WIGs. So you're saying 1 to 2 WIGs possibly.
Uh-huh.
And then as far as your lead measures, do you limit that to 1 or 2?
1 or 2. That's the goal. So you can really focus it on what are the high leverage behaviors that contribute to the WIGs.
Okay. And then once those lead measures, I see what you're saying. So the WIGs, somebody mentioned sub-WIG.
Yes.
So a sub-WIG would be if my WIG is, let's say wholesale. Let's say my WIG would be $1 million by $1 million in revenue in that by the end of the year.
Yep.
Let's say I hit that in 6 months.
Yep.
So was that a sub-WIG or was that an actual WIG?
No, that was a WIG. If you hit the WIG early, then celebrate.
Okay, got it.
Throw a party.
Right. It is what it is.
It is what it is. It goes back in the whirlwind.
And all right, okay, and then you can set another one because
you can set another one. Yeah, once you hit it, then on to the next one. And that's what kind of happens a lot of the time with these people is once it gets put into progress. Like even just talking to Brandon, some of the things that have happened with Bigger Pockets in such a short amount of time. The fact that you're focusing on things 1 week at a time, as opposed to a quarter at a time or a year at a time, you're focusing a week at a time. So the saying is, I think JFK said it, people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 3. And so when you're thinking about whatever your 3-year, your major, let's say that's your top WIG, it really is about breaking it up into those bite-sized things. And then once you break it up onto a weekly level, that's when you truly start to see momentum. And a lot of these things, I wouldn't be surprised if you hit them quicker than you set out to. So that's awesome. Well, we are kind of out of time here today. I really appreciate you guys giving me your attention. It's been really, really fun.
Hey, thanks for learning with us today on the show.
We would love to meet you at one of our free monthly meetups in Middle Tennessee.
Hit the thumbs up button if you like the content. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing on this channel.
Check out another awesome investing video here.